Hi, this is Joanne. I am a tutor here at Wyzant, and I wanted to go over this problem that was posted on the board. It was wedding cake design. It's described as, and here I have it on the board here, that the cake is composed of 3 tiers. Each tier is a square prism. The bottom tier has a length of 20 inches, the second tier has a length of 14 inches, and the top tier has a length of 8 inches. And each tier has a height of 6 inches. The entire surface area of the cake will be covered in frosting. And the question is, how many cans of frosting will you need to buy if each can covers 250 square inches? Okay, so there's a lot of information given in here, but nicely they've broken it down into steps for you to help you solve it. The first one says, calculate the surface area of the cake. The second one says, remember, frosting will not be placed where the tiers are connected. Third, determine how many cans of frosting you'll need. And 4, show your work to support your answers using words, numbers, and or pictures. So here are the assumptions that I'm looking at this problem that by reading it that I'm making. And one is the very bottom tier at the very bottom of the cake that's touching a plate or touching the whatever the cake holder, that will not be covered in frosting. And then where it says, remember, frosting will not be placed where the tiers are connected. So where tier 1 connects with tier 2, that's not covered in frosting. The bottom of tier 2 is not covered in frosting. And so like in the top of tier 1 there. And then where tier 2 connects with tier 3, that is also not covered. So that information, that's the assumptions that I'm making as I answer this question. And then this is a word problem. So what I want to do is I want to mark some key words that I'm seeing in this problem to help us solve it. So the first thing is it said that each tier is a square prism. So that means what we have is the bottom is going to be a square shape, and then each side, I'm going to draw this better on the other page, but each side then goes straight up. This is a prism. It's going to look like this. So it's not tapered or anything. It is a prism. So that's the first piece of information they gave us. And then we have an information on the size of each tier. So the first one is 20 inches. It's kind of, I can't even read what I'm doing when I do that. The first one is about 20 inches here. The second one is 14. The third one's 8. And it's a square prism. So that means if this side is 20, this side here is 20. And then they've told us that each tier has a height of 6 inches. So this height would be 6. Now, the question that they're asking, well, first they say the surface area is going to be covered in frosting. And the question they're asking is how many cans of frosting do we need if each can covers 250 square inches? So step 1, we're going to calculate the surface area of the wedding cake. So I've drawn here the 3 tiers that are described. We have the bottom tier, which is 20 inches by 20 inches by 6, then 14 by 14 by 6, 8 by 8 by 6. So we're going to start with calculating the surface area of the bottom. Now, the assumptions I've made is that the bottom here is not going to be covered in frosting, the very, very bottom. So if the very bottom is not covered in frosting, we're not going to need to calculate that surface area. But we do need the surface area of each of these sides. And as this is a square, then the length here of each of these sides is also going to be the same. So what I have is 4 rectangles here that are 20 inches by 6. I have one here, one back here, and one over here. So the bottom surface area, so I gotta do this with a pen. The bottom surface area, let me make this thinner, will be the 4 sides. So it's going to be 20 by 6, that's the rectangle, times 4. That's the sides of the bottom. Now the top of the bottom is going to have, the other cake is going to be on top of it. So that size, it's not quite drawn a size here, but that size of a square is not going to be covered in frosting. And so essentially what I'm going to have is a square that's 20 by 20 inches with a square inside it that is 14 by 14 inches cut out. So to calculate the surface area of the cake that's going to be covered in frosting, it would be I'm drawing here, it's going to be this part here. And the way to figure that out is it's going to be the entire area, which is 20 by 20, right? I'm going to say 20 by 20. And we're going to subtract from it this area here, which is 14 by 14. So I'm just going to draw that here, minus 14 by 14. So that's the surface area of this bottom tier. Next, we're going to look at the surface area of this middle tier. And some of the information, some of the way I'm going to figure out is the same, but the very bottom of this, again, is touching here. That is not covered in frosting. So we're going to have the sides here that are covered in frosting. So the sides of the tier 2, the sides of tier 2 are 14 inches by 6. So I'm going to do 14 by 6 times 4, because there's 4 of them. And then the next tier, the top of this, again, that is going to be the 14 by 14 minus the area of the 8 by 8 on top of it. So we're going to have a 14 by 14. And then we are going to subtract from that the 8 by 8 from the cake that's sitting on top. So finally, we're going to get to the third tier here. Now, the third tier, the bottom of it, the entire bottom is touching the second tier. So the entire bottom surface area isn't counted. So again, it's just the sides. So that would be 8 by 6 for the 4 sides times 4. And then the very top is covered in frosting, and there's nothing sitting on top of it. So we're going to get the 8 by 8. So calculating all this out, as you go through and you add up all these numbers, I'm going to go on a different board here. The total that I got when I added all of that up was 1408, and everything is in inches squared because we were multiplying inches by inches. So with that being our total, now we need to determine, we found the surface area of the cake. It is, what did we say? 1408. Let me put that in. 1408 inches squared. And we remembered this. That was part of our assumptions. We remembered. It says, how many cans of frosting do you need? And it told us that each can covers 250 square inches. So now I know how many square inches I have. If I want to figure out how much each can, how many cans I'm going to need, I'm going to use the relationship that one can is 250 square inches. So if I multiply that, if I divide that 1408 by 250, I will need 5.63 cans of frosting. Well, I can't have a partial can. I can't buy part from the store. I have to buy the whole thing. So you would need 6 total cans of frosting in order to cover your entire cake. So recapping, we had 3 tiers together here. The very bottom wasn't covered. Part of the top wasn't covered. The very bottom of this one wasn't covered. Part of the top wasn't covered. The very bottom of this one wasn't covered. All of the top was covered. So that is all of these, that surface areas added together. And then we multiplied by the rate. It's 1 can per 250 inches squared. Our inches went away. We are left with cans. And that is the answer to the problem.